Welcome to the Secure Connections podcast, brought to you by IOTSA, the Internet of Things Security Services Association. I'm your host, Brian Sherman. I get the pleasure of not only leading this educational series, but talking to some phenomenal people over the past 3 years now. It's been a great time. And my special guest today is one of our longtime friends, Dan Wensley, CEO of ScalePad. Dan is one of the pioneers of the managed services industry, and his latest venture aligns perfectly with the MSP community's recurring revenue goals. Welcome back to the Secure Connections podcast, Dan.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate you having us here under the brand new ScalePad brand. This is actually the first live podcast interview I'm doing under the new ScalePad brand and being announced as CEO since we evolved from Warranty Master. So exciting times, and it was good to hear it verbalized back to me for the first time.
And you got a new background for those watching the video too. So yeah, it's a lot of things going on. I want to touch on some of those today as well. But let's start out personally. It's been a couple of months since I think we've last chatted. So how was your summer? Amidst the pandemic, did you get any normal activities in at all this year?
Well, normal for us, Brian, during the summer period has been, CompTIA ChannelCon, and has been DattoCon, and certainly, leading into IT Nation here in the fall. And, that's been over the last 15 or 20 years, the typical summer. So it has not been normal, no. It's been an exciting time. I think the amount of work that obviously where we were as a business and the opportunity to work with partners, we spent a lot of time working with our partner advisory council during this transition period, Brian, and it was not as good as being there in person and having that one-on-one time, but it was certainly, invigorating to understand what everybody was working on here over the summer from our home offices and couches and kitchens.
The good news from the pandemic I've learned is that you can typically find everybody either at home or working during the time. So it's we know they're not on the road, and well, not very often they're on the road, at least this summer. So there is some upside to it.
Yeah, the only piece we used to get was a plane ride with no Wi-Fi, I guess, and that those days are gone. So
yeah, we are connected for the time being, but it's good. Yeah, and I hope you had an enjoyable summer personally, getting some time out at least. I know it was a good hiking summer for us.
Yeah, the weather was good. Again, my reprieve in the summertime is escaping to a cabin, and frankly, we'd actually rented it out a lot this year, pre-pandemic planning, thinking we were going to be on the road and a lot of other travel and in the office quite a bit over this period of time with the plans we had. So some renters of ours had a very nice time enjoying what we've got. So it was good. We had a lot to keep us busy this year. So it's really gone by slowly in some respects and even faster than usual in others.
You know what they say about best laid plans.
Yes.
Well, good. Let's switch. Talk about the work side a little bit now. You and your team have been quite busy the last few months with a number of innovations, and most recently, as you mentioned earlier, a new name. So why did you decide to transition away from Warranty Master, which seemed to be gaining a lot of traction in the channel? I know a name change isn't always easy amidst when you're doing really well.
No, it's not, and we put a lot of thought into it over even pre-pandemic and pre all the events that we've gone through here. But it was really predicated, Brian, on this application evolving past its brand and past its name. In the early adoption of this application, Warranty Master was when it was designed as a warranty lookup tool, and it provided phenomenal insight and automation for partners who hadn't had, that sort of easy access to the information that would help them better service their clients on warranty and asset lifecycle. And Warranty Master, frankly, was the perfect brand and the perfect name. And the first few thousand partners who joined and used the application, it was very fitting. But we've worked very hard to evolve the technology thanks to feedback from our partners and seeing opportunities to extend asset lifecycle management into much more of a proactive process versus a reactive. You can react by the automating the data and pulling it in, and then we strive to get very proactive so partners could work with their customers to plan asset retirement, plan asset procurement, and really budget and even sales forecast for the MSPs. So warranties, and we'll touch on this in a little bit here, Brian, because warranties, quite honestly, although we just changed the brand and changed the name, our warranty business for our partners is up 50% this year and up over 75% from last year. And in the economy, so some would question, why do you change the name when the warranty side of this business and opportunity is absolutely expanding? But back to the core value was it's the warranty business growth is predicated on us being able to better manage the assets, and when they can't be replaced as readily because of economic conditions or trying to extend budgets or eliminating budgets for hardware refresh, warranty business picked up. But that was part and parcel with what we were doing around asset lifecycle management. And then the last sort of tipping point, Brian, was when we decided we were going to deliver asset management for software this year as well. And now the name Warranty Master, although again, huge growth for our 8,000 partners globally this year, when we added software asset license management and management for both hardware and software, Warranty Master as a brand just didn't represent the value we were bringing into the market here in 2020.
Yeah. So Dan, you bring up a common issue too. I want to talk about the tech shortly, but I talked to a lot of MSPs lately that have been really working on doing the same thing. Some have had the same company name since they were a VAR in the early days and are looking at rebranding their company. How hard is it?
It's no small task, Brian. I will tell you, we our project for around the software asset management release was really shadowed by the project to change the brand. It's no small task. We're an automation organization. We use a plethora of tools, transitioning all those tools, the brand awareness and the brand equity we had in Warranty Master, that had to be thoughtfully, applied. There was a couple of immediate comments. So we don't like them. Change is hard, and change isn't always accepted by everybody. And we were diligent about talking to partners about it. We were working, I'll tell you an interesting story. We're working with our partner advisory council and so excited to show them software asset management when it was getting down to its final release versions and giving it to them. And at that time, we exposed to our PAC that, hey, by the way, we're also changing the brand, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about this release that we've been talking to you guys about for months. And incredibly, they went right to the brand name and said, wait a minute, we need to talk about this first. And so, and I appreciate it. And I understand it. And we were so diligent in having these conversations. So to answer your question directly, Brian, it is no small task. It is incredibly detailed process to ensure that it goes well, that it is representing your brand, that you have thought it all the way through, that you are able to communicate it effectively, that you are, not throwing out the old just for the new. So yes, complex, interesting, lots of t-shirts and hoodies given away, even internally to our staff who, are working for our partners, are working for that application every single day to tell them we're changing the name. They were excited about, but they had questions. There's no doubt about it.
Well, you got to answer the phone with the right name too. I mean, all of those things you think about that especially for larger companies, the more employees you have, the more complex it can be, right down to the business cards, even though we may not be handing them out right now.
Yeah.
Eventually you're going to need to have the business cards change.
Yeah. No, and for us, at the end of the day, it just made sense as we looked at our roadmap, as we looked at where we were in the evolution of the application and in speaking to partners. For us, Warranty Master just no longer represented the value. that we were delivering or plan to continue to deliver in the future. And it wasn't a change for the sake of a branding exercise. It was really to allow us, to better articulate what we're trying to deliver and are delivering to partners. And really, we're trying to be the pad so you can launch and scale your business. So the sort of a launching pad to scale your business was sort of the thought process behind it. And that's really what we strive to do every day. So we fell in love with the name, quite honestly, because it is core to what we're trying to do as an organization with partners.
You beat me to it. I was going to ask the meaning of it. So that's perfect. Thanks for explaining that, because I think a lot, as I talked about, a lot of IT service companies are looking at, they're not doing the same things they were years ago, and are looking at the same thing as knowing when, is a good time to go relaunch. And actually, rebranding is a great thing if you're getting stale and it doesn't really represent what your company does anymore. So thanks for hitting on that. Let's shift now to really what we wanted to talk about is, you built your brand on lifecycle management with Warranty Master, but all the changes I've read about in the channel news was the recent addition of SAM, Software Asset Management. You mentioned it already too. How does that work?
Yeah, it's a natural progression, believe it or not. Many are seeing it as a big move, and it is. There's no question about it. And I'll share some statistics with you. Today our partners are managing about 10 million hardware assets across, 500,000 SMB customers across the globe and in 76 countries where we've got partners. Incredible number. The hardware assets alone that our partners manage are worth about $11-12 billion. What's incredible is the number of software assets that every MSP is responsible for is 8 to 10 times more. There are 8 to 10 times more software assets inside an environment than there are hardware. So by pure volume, it's incredibly important. The amount of data. And then what we found was the same problems that we solved very early on for MSPs in asset data collection around hardware, again, was arguably 8 or 10 times more a problem when it came to software. Our core value as an application was automated data collection, providing you sort of the data that you can take insightful actions on, both internally as an MSP and externally. So when we looked at software, it was a natural progression for what we'd done on the hardware asset lifecycle management component. First and foremost, collecting that data autonomically and providing it to an MSP in an easy to consume, automated fashion. Again, the same value we delivered in hardware, and with software being more. And then we could do some unique things by putting hardware and software together and showing side by side this piece of hardware running this software. It's when we talked to so many partners early on, Brian, about, what would be the attributes you'd be looking for? What problems would you be looking to solve if you had this data? Because many were doing it manually and taking hours and hours just to collect the data. How accurate that data was or keeping it up to date was really their challenge. So yes, we can solve that with technology, but what is it going to derive and deliver for you as a partner to your customer? And the one thing they came to, and the big one, was standardization. Having that knowledge and having that data and having that insight allowed them to find environments that were out of scope and find environments that didn't have the latest software updates done or didn't have software applied, whether it was antivirus, whether it's the RMM agent on each device. As you know, we've got over 30 integrations with all of the RMM and PSA platforms and others, and that's where we derive our initial technology information from. But even those can get out of sync a little bit. So we're helping. I'm happy to say we're helping our integration partners a little bit, ensure that they've got the right agent deployed across the board on standardization. So it's good for the MSP and their partners.
Does it collect this information through some of the integrations that you have, Dan, or is it explain that process? How is it collecting?
Yeah, great question. Again, it's all been done based on the platform that we had originally built here at Warranty Master. The integrations we have across those 30 platforms, the RMMs, the PSAs, the documentation solutions, and others, that inherently has the data in it that we were able to extract through the APIs and now deliver it for software. Believe me, when you tell the team, hey, we want to go from 10 million assets to, we're going to be pushing 100 million assets now, Brian, with software. So there was some performance considerations that we looked at and have overcome. That was a big part of the engineering feat of what we were doing. But yes, we haven't had to do any new API integrations. We haven't had to do anything, deploy agents or change sort of our architecture of how we've been able to deliver hardware asset management. We've been able to duplicate that for software. So it's been pretty exciting. It's again a big shout out to our dev team, who's done just a phenomenal job taking this as a concept into fruition in a relatively short period of time here in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, I've going back to think about how assets have been tracked, everything from spreadsheets in the past to even you got more modern tools like PSAs. I know you can collect a lot of that information, but is it a lot different process now to bring that back into, in this case, ScalePad now? How's that transition process for an MSP that goes to set that up?
Again, one of the key attributes of our success has been ease of use and immediacy. As soon as you have that API connected, so we immediately rolled out, Brian, on day one, a free preview of our software asset management to all 8,000 of our partners globally. They didn't have to change anything. They didn't have to do anything. As long as they had the RMM API connected, the data populated. So it's incredibly important to us as a business that we're not putting any heavy lifting on our partners or a lot of configuration. We're about automation, simplicity, and being able to take action on data, but that is presented to you very, very, very easily, very quickly, very efficiently, and very clearly. That's the key. We get a lot of initial views of our reports, for example, Brian, the ones that our partners take to their customers, say, oh, it looks very basic. It's just, green, yellow, red colors. But you'll talk to our partners and say, do not ever change this. The simplicity is how I'm able to actually convey to a customer, how important this stuff is. Red, bad; green, good, right? And it's they can get into the weeds if they need. Exactly. So it's been good.
Although when I see yellow, I want to hit the gas. So
don't we all? Yes, that is it. That is the sign. Yellow is go faster. Decide whether you're going to replace the hardware or you're going to get it under a warranty. Yes. So same's true here.
So you uploaded this basically to 8,000 partners immediately. I'm glad I'm not on your support desk, because even good things people are going to wonder about. How's the feedback in that transition been for you?
It's incredible. I literally, as we're taping this, Brian, we have been in market for less than a week. Tomorrow will be 1 week. The feedback has been incredible. We're holding an MLT, a management meeting this afternoon, right after my interview here with you, to collect all the feedback and sort of solidify it. And because again, we had a great opportunity to talk to dozens of our partner advisory council members, and they were an integral part of the build out and how we were doing it. But I can't wait to hear from the thousands that we've spoken to over the last little while. We transitioned much of our partner development and refocused them to our partners here over Q4 of 2020 to ensure that they get what they need out of this. But again, a testament to our organization, a testament to our development team. It was built in a way that it's easily understood, easily used, easily adopted, and the value is there incredibly well. We didn't staff up a support organization. Lots of great conversation, because new and change is new and change, and it takes some time. But I will tell you, the adoption of it already is well ahead of anything we'd expected within the first week, and the feedback's been incredible. And we've got new things that we can add and will add in the short term here, but it's adding value to partners, which was exactly what we wanted to accomplish here with the release.
So let's take a look at the MSP side, Dan. If I'm one of your partners and I all of a sudden have this availability, how are they conveying this to their clients, and how will it help them in the future for MRR and all of the other things that they need to do?
Yeah, and we learned so much through the process, Brian. One of the data points that was brought forward by a number of our partner advisory councils to me was, hey, this is going to help us drive more hardware sales. And that wasn't in our scope of thinking during the design process and the validation process. Was how is software asset management going to help drive hardware, for example? And we have discovered it does and can and will. Standardization on equipment that is running sophisticated hardware, or hardware that does require more grunt behind it to operate efficiently, it will help identify those. It will help solidify where you are in the software life cycle, and do we need to add new, and should we just do it with a new refresh? So it's pulled it together. I mean, we saw the opportunity to put the hardware and the software information side by side. It's a great view. I think it is already one of our most popular views inside the dashboard. But again, we've stayed to our core. The first thing we've provided is the automated data collection. The second thing we've done internally for the MSP, Brian, is they can look at a holistic view across all of their customers. What software licenses are we running? What software are we not? Where are we missing on standardization across our entire customer base? And then we can break it down by customer, and they can look at each one of their customers individually and break it all the way down granularly to the individual devices. And again, with that side-by-side view. So I'm excited for what the Partner Advisory Council uncovered they were going to do with this and how they were going to utilize it, and then what our partners will do it now that we've released it to all of them. And I think it will come down to the reporting. And again, just like we do with our hardware reporting, the software reporting engine that we've created allows an MSP internally, whether you ever share this actually with your customer or not, it actually differs from partner to partner. Some use it. The majority use it in a QBR, absolutely. But the majority use it more internally. The reporting that was specifically designed to show a customer, they use it internally to standardize at the MSP level on behalf of their client, without ever taking it to them.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder too, are you finding the partners, I don't know if you're getting feedback on this yet, but are you finding that their environments are more varied than they thought they would be on the software side?
Once you collect the data, Brian, it's always amazing what you find, right? It just goes to the core issue and the pain point that was there. Data collection was hard. Auditing the data was even harder. It just wasn't readily available, and that's the problem that we've solved first and foremost. And we've got a lot of devices out of our standardization spec. We've got a lot of devices, not running the antivirus we want. We have a whole security stack. We have the OS stack. So it's providing great information and insight. And again, the immediacy of that. As much as warranties are driving top line revenue and profitability, and hardware replacement is driving top line profitability, just better managing your customers' environments it drives profitability for the MSP themselves, and making sure they're delivering the best possible value. And there's a simple analogy. Again, we were able to look back, Brian, and say, we've talked about a Spiceworks report that came out in early 2020 that looked at SMB investment, into IT. And the number one investment from a percentage standpoint in dollars was hardware. At 30, I think it was 35% of the total IT budget of an SMB goes towards hardware. Number two, that we had shaded out until last week, was software at 32%. So now you're talking 2/3 of the IT budget allocation for an SMB is now better managed by the MSP because of our application, and that's incredibly valuable. I think for any IT service provider to have availability of that data in real time.
Yeah. And Dan, I know on previous podcasts, we talked about extended warranties, how they can improve the device and data protection and reduce downtime for clients or SMBs as well as MSPs too. But how does SAM fit into the security equation? I know it's not a security sale, but I can see some benefits on that side. What are you seeing?
There really is, and we've got security identified in the reporting. We've got security identified inside the dashboard for software management. We have the antivirus and the other components, so it is there. It's how we use it. Again, standardization. You've got to make sure you've got this antivirus on every single device. That is a security play. So, without overemphasizing it, Brian, it is absolutely going to help drive security, because standardization of the environment is an important attribute to any security service you're trying to deliver to customers. And if you don't have antivirus or older antivirus, or a device comes onto the network that is not within the standardization protocol that you want to set for that customer, you run a risk. So I know we are helping there, but the partners can identify those opportunities for themselves, and it will strengthen their security posture both internally and externally with their customers for sure.
So yeah, I realize that the health, obviously, of the systems, of the software is, if you've got everything aligned there, it takes one more thing out of the equation that could be a vulnerability that MSPs have to deal with. But is it also about the insight that they're getting as far as where everything stands? As when I say from the software side, is making sure they know when things need to be re-upped and in addition to updated.
Yeah.
All these things are critical.
And again, you touched on the warranty piece, and again, we changed our name to ScalePad and are talking about software asset management inside the application. It's incredible to see what's going on this year, Brian, around, and it does pertain to security, is the extended warranty services. As I mentioned, I think earlier, we're up 50% over last year and 75% here just in the last quarter. We added, with much less hype and circumstance than the ScalePad launch, but we added the ability to add extended warranties onto workstations earlier on in the summer. And we didn't wait for the ScalePad launch to do that, because we knew how valuable this would be to all of our partners. So our partners had been growing their extended warranty service on servers. We added networking gear earlier in the summer, but about 70% of the hardware assets in an environment are workstations, whether they be laptop or desktop. And what's incredible in good economic times, right? We don't really focus on extended warranties because we're driving to replace those. We immediately identified that the desire or the budget or the ability for SMBs to replace those devices was diminished during an economic downturn. And the volume of extended warranty vulnerability was incredible. We did some auditing and some big data analysis and found that we increased the market opportunity for our partners from about $50 million with servers and servers and networking gear to pushing $500 million by adding workstations. And that has absolutely skyrocketed for partners. We have more first-time warranty purchases from partners than we ever had before. And again, that business is up 75% for our partners, where they're not going to replace a fleet anymore, or they're going to replace it maybe another year out. It's critically important they get a warranty service coverage on it, make sure the parts are available for any replacements. So it's been arguably a bad habit we've gotten into, that we now economically has driven us to make that change. So incredibly proud of that release we did earlier in the summer, again, with a lot less press release than we did on this one.
It's amazing when you throw out those numbers too, is I think back like a decade when tablets were first coming on the scene. It was like, oh, we're not going to have a need for workstations and PCs and laptops anymore, and they're going to go away. And honestly, if anything, I think I have more than I had back then. And yeah, there's a place for the mobility devices, but I don't think they're as prevalent as we thought they were.
No, it was another really interesting integration, Brian, that we saw, or sort of outcome was the number of devices have continued to go up inside the environments. And when the transition to work from home first started here, kind of end of Q1, early Q2, the number of assets being managed by our partners ballooned.
Right.
So, I did a number of press interviews, and some were saying, well, how can warranty sales be up? Because hardware sales were up in Q2. They absolutely were. But that was incremental, devices being added to networks where we saw that balloon, because we saw the data firsthand ourselves. But the incumbent set of solutions that were out there were not being replaced as readily. They were hard to find because, again, there was the spike. We're all going remote. Okay, here are new laptops. That drove a little bit of a run, or we were adding devices into the network because we're now working remote, and I've added this old laptop I had into my corporate network. So both were true simultaneously. The number of devices were going up, and the warranty opportunities were going up simultaneously. But all that said, regardless of what transpired here over the last couple of quarters, the number of devices inside networks has ballooned and continues to expand. IoT, imaging, you've heard a couple of them have gone off during this conversation. Two of my other IoT devices have gone off here during this podcast, and the one I'm speaking to. So, I'm a small business sitting right here with three devices in front of me.
It just goes to show how many things there are to manage, and MSPs are obviously being asked to manage it all. So I can see the value of having more and more platforms and automation to be able to help them with that part. But talking about old laptops, I'm just hoping they don't have like Windows 98 on those. There's probably a few of those floating out there too.
It's shocking what you can find when you actually pull the data sometimes.
Very good. Well, awesome. Always great talking to you, but it's time for our parting shots. Any final thoughts to share with our audience before we sign off today?
Just incredibly impressed with our industry once again, Brian. We've been through 2008 economic downturn. We've been through the dot bomb together. This is just another time in our history where this industry has come together, continued to innovate and change. And nobody likes the word pivot anymore, evolve, but all of those things are continuing to happen. So it's been incredibly important time for our industry, I think, as much as ever. Coming out of an economic recovery is one thing, but when we're really contributing to the livelihoods of a lot of businesses, I think it's incredibly gratifying. So I'm extremely proud of the entire industry and our little part and place in it. I think it's been an incredible time, and I think we're on the way to new and better things because of it.
I mean, when you look at IT and MSP community being essential, I mean, it's official now. I think it's clear to say, but I agree. We're in a great place. So
yeah,
thank you. On behalf of IOTA, I'd like to thank Dan Wensley of ScalePad, throw that in there, Dan, for bringing us up to speed on lifecycle and software asset management today. Happy to welcome them in with their new name and branding and all the awesome new offerings that they have too. But be sure to stop back next week for a new episode of the Secure Connections podcast, and have a safe and secure day. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Brian.